Hello, hello.
Good evening. I hope you guys remembered that we were starting at 6.
Yes.
I know many of you guys are accustomed to joining us at 6:30, but we mentioned last week that we'd starting at 6, and here we are.
Here we are.
6 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Yes.
Dallas-Fort Worth area, Texas, America.
USA.
It's USA.
Yeah.
And so that being the case, we are starting at 6.
Yes.
And so I hope most of you guys remember. Otherwise, you may be watching this after the fact.
Susan got it. Hello.
Sweet. Good to have you, Susan. And
a few other people are jumping on right now. So
as usual,
adjustment has been good for y'all. So
take a few minutes to let people jump in.
Yes.
One of the things we're making some adjustments in our time because of the training and certification process.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to adjust for our own kind of stamina, pacing, to make everything work and fit together. So it really just kind of fit better for us to start 30 minutes earlier.
Yes.
So.
And hi, Margie. Beth, it's just so weird to hear from very cold Australia. It's cold here today. It's 86 degrees. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I put the top down on the car. I mean, it's freezing.
It's chilly. And then Jim, hi there. Yeah, so glad you guys are here.
Yeah.
So, tonight's going to be a fun class.
Yeah, it'll be
interesting.
Be a little bit different. One of the things that when we talk about thinking differently, you guys will begin to get the drift. We've done two kind of the big picture things. One of the things you'll get more and more of the picture of is that it's not what you think. And when I say that, I'm actually saying two things at one time. And that's actually part of what we're going to talk about tonight is we're always saying two things at one time. And if you only notice one of the things, you're going to miss some of the most important things we say. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what happens is you may be realizing something, you feel something or something kind of stirs in your heart or mind and you can't quite put a finger on it, but you leave class and you're like, why do I feel different? I can't even tell you why. Mm-hmm. Because we're saying two things at one time. We're not trying to be mysterious about that, but there's both what we say and the way that we say it. And both of those things really matter for how it gets into your mind mm-hmm. and what your mind does with it. Mm-hmm. And so let me say it again. When we talk about thinking differently, it's not what you think. Now, that may have actually 3 or 4 layers to it if you think about it. But specifically what I mean is the shift from thinking one way to thinking differently. Most of the time when someone says change your mind, we don't think differently, we think a different thing. Mm-hmm. But we're trying to feature these weeks, this series, we're trying to feature a couple of different both ways to describe, but perhaps several, including tonight, will be a way to experience mm-hmm. thinking differently in a way that you can go, oh, I never thought that way. Yes. So here's what we're going to do. So again, we've kind of taken some of our content from my book, Think Differently, Learn Differently, which I'll put my head over here. Hi, babe. From my book, Think Differently, Learn Differently, because this is where 2 years ago when we put this out, hey, Elizabeth, when we put this out, it was kind of my best effort to talk about the very topic of these several weeks. We've learned so much since then. Mm-hmm. Like, in fact, last week's content, we learned completely after putting the book out.
Mm-hmm. Like just a few months afterwards.
And it was like, can we pull the book back and start over? But we didn't, obviously. Hey, Cassandra.
Hey, Cassandra.
So when we talk about thinking differently, we're really fundamentally talking about a shift in the thought process. Mm-hmm. And as we often say, when you start to hear us talk about thinking differently, your default learning process is already in motion. And so often what happens is people think, oh, I know what think differently is. And then a little bit later they go, oh.
Do I know what think differently is?
I never thought that way. Or suddenly the light goes off, the scales fall off, however you describe kind of that revelatory moment.
The veil is torn.
The veil is torn. Nice.
Thanks.
And but you see something in a new way. And what's really happening when you have that aha moment is the shift in ways of thinking may show you the same thing you've been looking at, but in a completely different way. It may give you old information, but with a completely new illumination. And as we'll talk about in the days ahead, the processes of our mind are multiple and varied.
Wow.
Multiple and varied.
Wow, it's very deep.
And so as we explore these multiple and varied processes of the mind, you'll discover that also produces multiple and varied impacts on your experience. Tonight will be one example of that. So I want to start again by saying, every time we teach, we're always saying at least two things at one time. There's what we say. We're delivering content. There's no question. Most verbal communication, unless you're speaking in tongues or groaning or something like that, most verbal communication has a content element to it. But the thing that reaches beyond the default learning mechanism of most people is not what is being delivered, but the way it's being delivered. Tonight, we want to kind of illustrate that without saying much more about it. We're going to teach you one concept two ways. One concept, two ways. One concept, two ways. And so what we expect you to experience is a shift and maybe some recognition and maybe some, wait, that's not the same. Oh, wait, what if it is? We expect you to have an opportunity to think differently before you even know, because knowing is part of thinking. And when you start thinking differently, you don't know it until it happens. I know. So as they come to know, they're going to discover that this kind of what we do tonight will help you have an experience more than a cognitive learning. You'll have an experiential learning, which is a whole nother lesson in and of itself. So with no further ado, Polly's going to take it away and teach you one of our core concepts.
Awesome.
Ready, set, go.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so I want you to grab your pen and your paper because I really want you to take notes because this stuff is really important. And I'm going to pop this up here. So go ahead and write this one down. It's 2 Corinthians 10, 3-5. We kind of paraphrase it because we can only get so much in here. But tonight we're going to talk about strongholds. I'm going to teach you guys about the anatomy of a stronghold and how we can really just break free from strongholds. So we are tearing down strongholds, speculations, and every lofty thing raised against the knowledge of God. And so, write that down, tuck that in, so you kind of understand what a stronghold is. And so tonight I'm going to run you guys through. Did I leave it up there long enough for y'all? Here, I'll pop it back up again. Tonight I'm going to run you guys through just the anatomy of a stronghold and what happens. And so I'm going to start, we're going to go into a cycle because this is a cycle anatomy and you're going to be going clockwise with it. Okay. Yeah. So you're going to start at the top and the first thing is going to be event. And what ends up happening is an event happens. So an event can be anything from a teacher telling you you're never going to make it or you're stupid, or, your grandpa tells you you're a little chubby and an event happens, or you have a car accident, or, you lose a loved one, something like that, just any kind of event. And that event creates pain. And so when an event happens and it creates pain, what happens is a lie will try to sneak in and it'll go, man, you're fat and you'll never be beautiful. Or everybody in my life dies and leaves me. Or I'm never going to be smart enough, so why should I even try? Or I'm going to show everybody how smart I am and I'm going to work so hard to and that no life outside of this will ever happen because I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And so when the lie comes in, what ends up happening is you start protecting and comforting and building a false version of yourself to protect this lie. And so that can be anything from addictions. Let's see here. What else? When you're protecting yourself, it can be isolation. It can be surrounding yourself by a lot of people. I have to be around people all the time to be okay. And if I'm by myself, I'm not okay. Anger, ministry.
Yeah, busyness,
working all the time.
False self,
just kind of losing yourself. And then the protection aspect. Remember what we talked about last week? These two teachings go so good hand in hand. Oh, yeah. The 4 levels of the brain, is really midbrain when you protect and comfort. And so all of the things that we talked about in the midbrain, you get stuck in that. And so, it's like, okay, I'm going to go eat a chocolate cake. A slice of chocolate cake isn't bad, but when it's all about inhaling the whole chocolate cake to make you feel better, you might want to start asking questions. And so we end up building this false version of ourselves. And when we build a false version of ourselves, we go to the next part up here, say 9 o'clock. Okay, let's do this. So event is 12 o'clock. lie is 3 o'clock. Protect and comfort is 6 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock is people respond. So when people respond, they're actually going to respond to the false version of you because they don't know the true version of you. They know the isolated version of you. And so when you are protected and tucked in and it's isolating, that the people respond to that version of you. And a lot of times it recreates a very similar event that gets you trapped. And when that event gets recreated and pain happens, the lie gets highlighted again. And you're like, oh, well, it's a lie. It must be true about me. So I'm going to protect myself even more. And around you go. But here's something really important. I want you to divide a line, and between, you're going to like make a X through it. And on one side is going to be event and people respond. And the other side is going to be lie and comfort and protect. On the people respond and event, I want you to write, I am not responsible for that.
So good.
You are not responsible for how people respond to you, and you can't stop events from happening. However, you are responsible for believing the lie and how you comfort and protect. And please hear, I'm not saying shame on you for believing that lie, because man, those lies are freaking sneaky, right? They come in and like a lot of times they have like a little bit of truth in them. And because it did hurt. And, you know, maybe I'm not the number one smartest one in the class, or, you know, maybe I am, you know, these different things, but the lie is what started building the false version of yourself. So it's taking that and going, God, what do you want to say about this? What is the truth? And how can you help me understand the truth about who I am, who I'm created to be, so now I can replace that lie and start realizing that I don't need to comfort and protect in ways that have kept me stuck in the anatomy of a stronghold.
Nice. All right. How about that, guys? Was that a fast and amazing teaching? And that is one of our core teachings. We tell our certification training group that that's one of our core models. And that particular model is so helpful, not only because of the way that it tells us how to understand how strongholds come to pass, but also how to tear them down. And Polly just killed it in 6 minutes. I didn't watch the timing.
Keep the time, yeah.
But it was, that's.
I hope y'all took good notes.
High five. So now I'm going to teach you the exact same thing, but in 100% different way. You guys ready? So put your pencils down. In fact, push your notebook away. If it's too close, you might be tempted. So just, if you need to put it on the floor, feed it to the dog, put your pencil down, push your notebook away, take a deep breath. And as you take a deep breath, you might even want to close your eyes. That may be counterintuitive to you, but you're welcome to close your eyes. And as you take a deep breath, I just want you to let the words I'm going to say to you begin to soak in. We know the levels of the brain about connecting to self. Well, I talked to you about this. I want you to let these words connect. All right. So take a deep breath. Smile. Give me your ears. Somewhere inside you, you live. The beautiful one who's unafraid and unashamed. Somewhere inside you, you sing or scream or whisper. You may be forgotten, but you yourself have not really forgotten. Silenced, perhaps, hidden away beneath layers of life and circumstance. But you're in there somewhere. The war against you has been unrelenting, sometimes vicious, sometimes subtle. Either way, vicious or subtle, this war is always intended to steal from you all that you were created to be. The war tests you and surprises you. If the battle can convince you to hide and run or to self-protect, the tide turns against you. Hard on the outside, a false front, you run from. You ask yourself, how could they have said that to me? How could they have done that? How could they not see those tears rolling down my cheeks? The war rages all around and tries to steal from you all that you were made to be. Year after year after year after year after year, you hide. How can you keep the pain from soaking in? Can you try to become strong, or is it really strong? You learn how to be smarter than the others. You learn how to be harder than the others. You learn all the ways to be stronger than anyone else in the battle. Your brain, your body, what to do and what not to do, all carefully calculated to provide a safe passage through. Or is it the death of you? See, when you were little, you danced and played when nobody else knew. You sang when it was in your heart. You looked joyfully at your big eyes in the mirror, and you had yet to hear the voice of self-criticism. You danced and played again. When you were little, you cried without shame and laughed until you snorted. This made you laugh even more, even when someone heard you. When you were little, you had yet to be betrayed, and you had yet to betray yourself. When you were little, you lived. The war against you has taken its toll. You're too tired to dance and play, or too ashamed. It's hard to tell the difference sometimes. You now need to be protected from the ways you have protected yourself. Your walls keep others out, but they also keep you in. Locked tightly behind your own clever strategies, you hide. You hide from them, and you hide from yourself. You hide so well, you can't even find yourself. But somewhere inside you, the real you lives. The beautiful one who's unafraid and unashamed. You sing still, whether you listen or not. You cry, whether you listen or not. Somewhere inside you, you live, hidden away beneath the layers of life and circumstances. You hope that you will care for the real you inside like the others did not. You hope that you'll introduce the real you inside to the one who made you. You hope that you'll be the one who takes care of you. You hope that you'll hear your song and invite yourself to dance and play again. You hope that you will no longer join the war against yourself, and you hope you can discover what you need and help yourself find it. You hope you'll pull down the walls and introduce yourself to the one who made you. You'll hope you'll play. You hope that you'll let yourself tell you who you are. Somewhere inside you, the real you lives. Come out and play. Take a deep breath. Let the words settle in. More than the words, pay attention to what was happening in your body and what was happening in your heart during the teaching that I just did. And after a moment of breathing and letting it soak in, I want you to kind of come back to the room that you're in so that Polly and I can talk about what we just did. Teaching number 2 can have a variety of different effects, but we don't want to jump ahead too fast. So as you guys take a few deep breaths, look around the room where you are. Take note of your favorite things in the room. Maybe your computer is that thing, but maybe there's some things that you're wearing or some things on the wall, or maybe you like the place where you're sitting, but take note of your favorite things in the room. Then if there's a sound nearby, turn your ears and tune in that sound. Maybe even the sound of our voices. Mm-hmm. And then one more time, try to just pay attention to what you feel physically. You feel your seat underneath you. You feel your clothes draped over your body. Maybe you have an itch somewhere. But pay attention for a minute to how you feel. And then as you do that, just kind of jump back into the part of your mind that's used to learning in a particular way. Now, one of the things we want you guys to do is a few of you just put in the comments what you experienced in those 2 different teachings. Not what you thought about them, but what you experienced. And will you start writing that in the comments? And we'll give some feedback about that and hear from you guys. But will you start writing in the comments what you experienced in those two different teachings? Here's what we want you to hear. We told you ahead of time. Those were the exact same teaching. Mm-hmm. The exact same constructs, the exact same concepts were all laid out in completely different ways. And so it's the way that matters more. And so I'm hoping we get a comment here pretty soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to say it to you this way. Lesson number 1, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the left brain and the right brain. And one somewhat oversimplified way to describe what we just did is Polly talked to your left brain. Isn't that funny? And I spoke to your right brain. The concept in those two teachings are exactly the same. It's the impact, it's the experience, it's the way that the soul receives that we want you to catch. So Elizabeth, you said you experienced sadness. Did you experience sadness in both teachings or in one in particular? Susan says a bit of a rush to get all the details in the first one. Can't make a connection to the same thing in the second one, but it was relaxing and freeing. Notice the difference. Left brain, getting all the data down, getting all the information. Polly did an incredible job of putting a ton of data into a very short time. And what I did, instead of giving you data, was I gave you imagery and emotion. I gave you more evocative imagery that let you perhaps put yourself in the reading or at least experience what the person in the reading was experiencing. Mm-hmm. Now, Polly's teaching was academic, Bob's was experiential. Nice way to say that, Jen. Spot on.
Yeah. And then Elizabeth was talking about yours.
Yeah, sadness.
Yeah. And then Beth had a sense of settling down in herself.
Yeah. So what happens is the left brain has a need to get things right because its job is to gather data. Mm-hmm. And so the left brain, one of the reasons Polly, we kind of joked about it ahead of time. Mm-hmm. She's like, I'm going to tell them to take notes. Because if you've been with us at all, you know we normally tell people not to take notes.
Yeah, it's like just put your pens down. And so I really wanted to get you in your left brain as much as possible.
Yeah. So if you grabbed your pencil and paper and started taking notes, you were automatically in that default learning for a Western mind. Yeah. Bethany, I was holding my head with Polly, nodding my head with Polly. I was taken to a different place with Bob. I needed this tonight. Wow. Yeah. I want you guys to really pay attention. The teaching, both teachings can really help people, but we also want you to get a hold of the idea that sometimes what an audience needs is to get all the concepts clearly verbalized. And sometimes what they need is to be taken to a different place to have an experience. More importantly, sometimes what you need is to recognize that your default method of learning may not actually produce in you the changes that you're pursuing. So much of the time when people are stuck, struggling, wishing for a change in their lives, they go, I need to read a book. I need to go hear a speaker. I need to go hear a preacher. We need to tune in to Think Differently Academy on Tuesday night or get a subscription to Think Differently Academy. And the thing is, the way that you take that in makes a difference on the way that it impacts you. Notice, even before I started reading, by the way, the section that I just did with you guys is straight out of this book, in this section on left brain, right brain. And so if you want to get a copy of that, start by getting a copy of this. This book is on ebook, but not on audiobook at this point in time. So we're working on that. But in the meantime, that's where that content came from. But what we really want you to catch is that sometimes you sit down and go, oh, I just need to change. I need to get something that will help me grow, move past the barrier, overcome this stronghold, whatever it might be.
I like how Terry and Shelley, not sure which one, but I melted at the thought of introducing myself to my creator.
Nice. I love that.
And yes, I was so focused on learning that it became an obstacle.
Yes.
And I saw the child looking in the mirror at themselves. Nice, Cassandra.
I love that, Cassandra.
No, denotes LOL. Yes. And I needed to hear both. Yeah. It's, oh my goodness, it just left my brain and I had a thought. It'll come back. Go ahead.
Okay. So the whole key for this is, again, we started out saying this, the way that you know something in many cases matters more than what you know. One of the things that happens is when we take in important and helpful information in a way that's not helpful, we can actually feel shame or guilt because we know that the information ought to change us, but we think there's something wrong with us because we read the good book, we went to the good teaching, we sat under the great pastor, whatever it might be, and we wonder why it didn't change us. It may not be something wrong with your personality, character. It may simply be that the way that you took it in doesn't reach the part of you that most needs to be reached.
Yeah.
And so listen, a speaker can stand up and teach either way. And we actually, when we do this live, I know this is live, but timing wise, we actually do 3 versions of that, where the first one is Polly's version, very left-brained. Then we do kind of a mid, kind of with a lot of conversation, a lot of interaction, kind of drawing some pictures, right?
Yeah.
And then we do the very right-brain thing that I read to you the last time. And so, what we're after is helping you realize that you can change the way you take in anything. You don't have to rely on a specific teacher or their style to help you change. You can change the way you take in stuff because you could listen to Polly's teaching and go, what would that look like in practice? In fact, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. The thing that I read to you from this book, there it is again. The thing that I read to you from this book was a blog that I wrote for a co-op blog that I used to be a part of. And I had sat down and thought, I'm going to write Anatomy of a Stronghold for this blog's audience. And I wrote it, and it sucked so bad. Like, it was spot on. My details were so accurate. Man, I laid it out. But man, it would put anybody to sleep. It would put coffee to sleep. It was like such a snoozer. And I read it and I thought, I can't send this in to the editor of this blog. I mean, they'll go, why did you write this for us?
We're never putting you in here again.
And so I thought, I wonder what it would be like to write Anatomy of a Stronghold from the internal experience of someone who's about to go through it. Mm-hmm. So I literally took the concept of Polly's teaching and I wrote it from a different angle. If I can write it from a different angle, you can learn to hear from a different angle. You can take anyone's teaching and let yourself look at it through a different set of eyes. You can take any book that you read and listen to it read it through a different set of eyes. Listen to it if you're on audiobooks, right, Bethany? And so what we're after then is helping you know there's more than one way to learn. Tonight you learned about Anatomy of a Stronghold, but more importantly, you learned about a way of learning that's very different than what you learned. So let's take a look at what else. Go ahead.
I remembered what I was going to say. So for you learning junkies out there, learning's not bad. Information is not bad. Yet it could be a midbrain response to protection.
Yeah.
And to like, if I take all this in, I'll know more, I'll be better, whatever the reason is. And so this week, I would love to challenge you to, contingent on your level. I do this with some of my clients. I think you do this with some of your clients too. Some of them I'm a little kinder. And I was like, okay, I need you to do this for at least 72 hours. Try it for 72 hours. Because we're not after you not learning and getting information. What I'm after is information about what learning means to you. And if you get anxious when you're not learning, then it might be time to look at what is true about learning, and is that a protection and a comfort? And so just interrupt and see what happens. I know that might be difficult for some of our certification people, so maybe that won't be your homework.
Yeah, that won't be our certification people homework because you've got so much content to consume.
Yes.
Definitely, for sure.
But for our non-training and certification peeps, just try it and see what happens. And if you feel yourself like, oh my gosh, I have to read something, I have to do this, I got to listen to them, I gotta, then take a deep breath and go, I wonder what I'm believing about myself. I'm wondering where that's coming from in that anxiousness.
What's going on in my heart?
Yeah, just interrupt.
What am I experiencing?
Yeah.
So let's answer a couple quick questions. Gail just said, and this is important, I'm so glad you asked, Gail. Hi, I want to share this series with someone else. I know this is not the first in the series. How can I find the ones that started the series to watch them again myself and share them? So the easiest way to get kind of the multiple parts of a series is our YouTube channel. I see that you're watching on Facebook, but what do you call it? Simulcast. We simulcast on both Facebook and YouTube. And so YouTube kind of makes it, organizes it more easily.
Yeah.
And so Gail or anyone else, you can go over to YouTube and just copy the links, and they should be gathered together in sequence.
And it's Think Differently Academy. It might even be TD Acad on, I think it's Think Differently Academy. You'll see our little yellow brain as the logo, and then you'll find all the videos there.
There's another Think Differently Academy on there, but it's got like a 15-second video and it doesn't look like us. And so do Think Differently Academy has, a half a year's worth of videos on it already. And so you can get those there and send them to your friend.
Yeah.
Cassandra, we hadn't read hers yet. I was thinking with Polly's, a visual would have been good. I know that she does a visual in the training. Yeah. In fact, we left that out on purpose because the visual pushes people more towards their right brain. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to leave kind of both the strength and the frustration of a pure left brain teaching.
And me teaching that fast is not how I teach.
Yeah.
And then we do an experiential thing at the end when I teach it cognitively. And in my book, I actually teach it fairly cognitively, but then I take it with the visual. So if you wanted to find it in Cherished, Shattered Innocence, Restored Hope, you can get the visual and an explanation of it, very cognitive explanation. And then I tell a story using the anatomy of circle.
It's hard for Polly to teach a pure left brain thing.
It is. It was a challenge.
The right brain's all about connection.
Yeah.
And like you are a connecty kind of teacher.
Thank you.
So I was watching you kind of go,
suck it up and I can just do this.
All right. Yeah. So Jim says to me, academic teaching is the tree of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Experiential teaching is the tree of life. Spot on, dude.
Yeah.
And then Betty, the second teaching brought me in. You hear that? It pulls you into an experience. Mm-hmm. And I began to experience what was being said. In Polly's explanation, I was trying to get all the details straight.
Yes.
Hear how sometimes the way of learning can actually be an obstacle to what you're learning.
Yeah. Thank you, Bethany. And nice, Beth. You'll be trying today about teaching differently.
Love it.
Sweet.
All right. Well, awesome to be with you guys.
Yes.
And somewhere down the road, the next couple of weeks, we're going to keep doing the series about thinking differently. We just want you guys to get a glimpse at the incredible strength and brilliance of your mind.
Yes.
And know that sometimes what you think are limitations are simply no one's introduced you to the user's guide to your brain. So we often call this book the User's Guide to the Brain. This book, User's Guide to the Brain.
Get the book.
Get the book. You can get it now on Think Differently Academy, tdacad.com.
Oh, you could sing it like Dallas Jenkins.
No. tdacad.com. Wow, I just did, didn't I?
You did.
That will never happen again.
It will. You did it again. Just after you said we're going to do it again.
I left out the TDACAD part.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Wow.
Yeah.
You guys have a great night. And if you don't know what we're talking about The Chosen. And Dallas Jenkins is the director and kind of the head guy of all of it.
And he sings
his little jingle, and it's so cheesy and awful and funny.
So it's going for cheesy and awful.
Oh, I did again. That was cheesy and awful too.
Here we go, cheesy and awful. Next week we talk about learning differently in cheesy and awful ways. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.